want to welcome Ioannis. Is that close?
Ioannis or Yanis. It doesn't matter either.
Would you like to give the folks watching a little kind of potted history of you and why you're here to have a conversation today?
Sure. I mean, I guess my background is born and raised hospitality professional, betrayed professionals and turned academic about 20 years ago, but I have never really left the world of professionals, do a lot of consultancy work and research within the hospitality context. Worked closely with the Institute of Hospitality over the years, was a trustee for them. I'm now chair for the Council for Hospitality Management and Education. So I'm all things hospitality, if you like. So been baptized with the spirit of hospitality, I guess.
So what skills am I going to gain from university that an employer is going to look at and say, yes, this is what I want, this is what I value?
How many days do we have? Okay, I'll try to give whatever comes into my mind in terms of the top ones, and not necessarily in the order. It's how they come. First of all, teamwork. And we do a lot of group work, and some of our final years hates us for us. And then they come back to me years later and they say, Ioannis, now I get it. When they're in it, they're like, oh, we're getting, as final years, we're getting so much teamwork. Is it because it's easier for you to assess? Actually, it's harder for me to manage. Because quite often I have to facilitate, you got personality classes, and you got also, they come to me and they're like, oh, I can't stand this guy. And then I have to be, put my facilitator hat on. But teamwork is a great one, which it's a friendly environment to test your teamwork skills and be able to improve them. You're not going to get that in industry.
Yeah.
You either float, you can swim, or you go under. But we protect our students and we give them the environment to learn that and more skills. Time management is an incredibly important one. People forget. Networking is another one that comes into mind. I always bring guest speakers in my classes, even now. What you see there at the top is part of a mini series which I invite colleagues from industry to talk and try to keep a positive vibe about the industry and they tell their stories. So the mini series is called Hospitality Stories.
Yep.
But after each story, my students get a chance to network with these colleagues. Reflection is another important one that, if you're in industry, and I remember as a restaurant manager, I was always in the panic box, reflection, what is that? But if it becomes a habit to reflect, then you use it. And it's a wonderful tool, reflection, where not only you can take stock of what happened, but also you can analyze, how do I do it better? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a keen barbecuist. Is that a word? And I, every time I do a barbecue, I am very careful as to exactly how I do it, and I keep on reflecting how I can improve the process. To the point I've reached solar barbecuing, but that's another story. It's another story for another time. We talked about time management, interpersonal skills, very important, communication, problem solving. The hospitality industry, all sectors. I dislike courses, which is another indicator. If you're looking for hospitality, I'm only talking about hotels and restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bias that a lot of colleagues have. No, talk about nightclubs right now. What is happening to them. Talk about timeshares. Talk about the consultancy companies that exist out there.
Yep.
Talk about hostels. People forget hostels exist. Gentlemen's clubs. Somebody told me, I used to work for one. And somebody said to me, what do you do there? Do you play the bouzouki? And I had to explain. Bouzouki is a Greek instrument. And I could go on for all the sectors that exist.
Yeah.
Attention to detail. Did I say problem solving? Am I repeating myself?
Yeah, we talked about that, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole range of skills that A, we're going to learn, and B, is incredibly valued to employers. Okay, good. So you touched on how much it would cost. So you touched on the $9,000 a year to go back and study. Is there funding available for me to be able to go out there and do this?
There is funding. I mean, there's obviously the loan. If you're looking for a degree, you can get a loan. And the thing about loans is there's been a lot on the media of how terrible it is, and you're going to end up with a 50K burden afterwards. And it doesn't work that way. No, don't take it from me. Go and look at Money Saving Expert. Did a beautiful article about what getting a student loan is all about and why it's important to take it, even for parents that can afford to pay off, because you don't have to start paying it until it's just over 26 grand. When you graduate, you start paying part of it, a small percentage. Once you start earning, I think it's around 26 and a half grand or more, and you pay a tiny percentage of that. And then after a certain number of years, if you haven't managed to earn that much, which to the average person that's got a degree in this industry, by the time, I would say, no, I was interviewing one of my students, and she just graduated 4 years ago, and she is not only a fantastic rising star and she's in management, but she's also a trustee in the Institute of Hospitality. When I was a trustee, I was 41 in the Institute of Hospitality, but the whole industry has changed, and the opportunities for the young people are huge, and you can actually, if you push, you can get at director's level in your 30s.
For sure.
I'm not going to talk about the salaries that they get. A lot of this is unpublished. So moneysavingexpert.com will give you a good idea of what it really means of getting that loan. But that's not all, because obviously parents will think, well, I have to pay for the accommodation, I have to pay for all the extra stuff. And if you come from a family that cannot afford it, look at charities and trusts that exist. One comes to mind right now. The Savoy Educational Trust offers a lot of bursaries.
Okay.
If you look at their website, they will tell you what you need to do. Schools in particular have their own bursaries. Maybe you're athletic, maybe you're really good at, I don't know, swimming or whatever. Look up those details and you might get discounts, you might get bursaries, you might get, and sometimes if you come from a particular background, you get bursaries for those particular backgrounds. If you're in minority, if you come from a cultural minority background, you might get even more opportunities to get bursaries. And don't forget industry support. I mean, if you can't afford it, but you still want to do it, then think fight hard, get into a job, impress. And if you impress your managers, you're probably going to get a mentor anyway there. And you could do an apprenticeship where you do your degree whilst working and pulling in from experience. There's so many ways you can approach this. Don't just have one, black and white way of looking at things. Many shades of gray, as I call it. And if you want to add a bit of color, even better.
Perfect. So you said that you'd studied hospitality. How did you pay your fees?
Oh gosh, this is a long time. I'm going back a few years now, but my first degree was in hospitality management. It was called hotel management, and it was with a private. It was private, so even if you're thinking my age, it was free. No, it wasn't. I had to go. No, I didn't have. I chose to go to a private college, which was Swiss style education, and collaborated with a Swiss hotel school. And then the final year, we had to go there and do our viva for our exams. But it was called. It's still in existence. I'm very proud to be an alumni of Alpine in Greece, and they were working with Neuchâtel, a hotel school in Neuchâtel, and that's where my degree is from. They validated it, and my parents paid the fees. And back then the fees were, for my family and the income that we had, was quite big. And I was ever so grateful, but I also felt incredibly guilty. And I remember that I used to work as a waiter in order to subsidize my spending money. If I needed to buy books, if I needed to buy extra stuff, I never asked for a penny from my parents. As far as they were concerned, the only thing they paid was the invoice from the college. They didn't know that because I never asked them for anything more. My mother always, bless her heart, wanted to give me more, but I always said, Mom, okay, don't worry about it. And I got so much experience from working as a waiter in weddings and doing, back now they call it 0-hour contract. In practice they used to have that. Even when I used to work, I used to get a call and say, are you available tonight? And I would go and it was tiring. And then at some point I decided I was always going to go back and work the hotel and work the restaurant that we started with my brother in Greece, which is still running, and it's an award-winning restaurant, and I'm very proud of what my brother, he's a chef, has done with it. So he's the chef manager now. But I wanted to do a master's degree, and that was, my mother used to say, no, we will pay for it so you can finish it and come back. I said, no, I will go to England, which I did. I will work for 4 years. That was my plan. And then I'll do a master's, and I will pay for all of it. And that's important to me, to learn that I can do it. You know, it wasn't that they couldn't afford it. I know it would be a struggle if they did it, but they could push themselves and pay for it. But I didn't want to, because I was always a restless spirit. And once again, I remember for Radisson Edwardian Hotels being part-time student at Surrey University, and at one point I fainted in a class because I was working 12 hours at night. In the morning I catch a train. And that to me was, you know, even that experience, it just kind of takes stock of who I am and what I can do. And I'd say that to my students: you never know who you are and what you can do until you reach your limits. So push yourself to reach your limits. And then I guess I started teaching. I was very lucky at the time. I didn't need to have a PhD to enter into a university. And being in the source of knowledge, being in the fountain of knowledge, you cannot but drink. So I went to my wife and I said, look, you know, I've got the opportunity to start a PhD here. Are you okay with that? You know, always ask permission from the powerful ones. And she said, she's an accountant. So when she looked at they would subsidize part of it, she said yes. That was a big mistake, because doing part-time PhD as well and working full-time was a huge challenge, and pushing myself to the limits again. But I haven't stopped learning, and even after the PhD, I'm still doing research, and it's hard because you have to teach, you have to research for, and you have a lot of admin responsibilities, but you must also keep your mind sharp, and you keep on reading and you keep on researching. So
I love the fact that you recognize that privilege of having your parents pay for that, and did not want to just keep putting your hand out, you know. So going out there and getting that real life experience whilst also studying, you know, that's a really powerful thing. So what piece of advice would you give to young people who want to study hospitality management? What's the thing that you think you should know this?
I think we already touched on the fact that don't stay lazy. Get out there, work, get some work experience. And the work experience is wonderful because you also have real life examples about a theory. You can say, that's what it means. Now, some colleagues are very talented in being able to apply theory to practice. I'd like to say I try always to give examples when I bring in a theory in the classroom, but you're not going to always get that. You know, you are going to get some people who have been trained, just researchers, and, you know, they talk about strategy and all they're talking about theory, and you're thinking, what does that mean? So have real life examples. Always look, when you are working out there, always look for what the managers do, and especially when they do mistakes and they're bad at what they do. That is an amazing opportunity for you to learn. I get students who go to a placement and say, but Ioannis, I know more than they do and I'm better than. I said, that's great. Learn from what they don't know. Learn from what they don't do. Okay, don't just expect everything to be handed to you in a plate. Make sure you go for a placement, especially if you're super young. You know, you get people starting at 17, 18 university. If you've done work and you worked in the industry before, if you've taken a year out and you've worked in the industry, you might not need the placement. But I say internship are important if you haven't got work experience. Make sure you join societies at university. If in your university or college there is no society that says something about food or wine or hospitality and hospitality experiences, make one. Be the leader, and that goes on your CV. Make sure that you look out for competitions. There's lots of competitions now. In my day, there were maybe none. But we've developed, in CHIMI, we've developed yet another competition. We had one for placements called Young Guns, and you can go on to chimi.org.uk and look for those competitions. The other one is a video competition now we've created. The ROH, we created the Passion for Hospitality competition. Network like crazy. Every time you get a guest speaker, go and talk to them, ask questions so you're memorable, you know. Ask questions from your lecturers so you're memorable, because when you graduate, you'll want a reference. You know how many requests for references I get? And I'm going like, who is this guy? Who is Ioannis? I can't remember Ioannis. But if Ioannis asked me questions and had input and contributed and went into the competitions and the societies, I will remember Ioannis or Helen or whatever their name is. Plan ahead, have a plan. The plan changes because life throws things at us, but do have a plan and step up. Don't just, you know, if I say something, when even I'm bringing a theory in the classroom, I say to my students, do not take it for granted. And quite often I lie in the classroom. I say something just to test. I'll bring and I'll say, this is something completely crazy, and if my students say, yeah, that's right, and then I flip. What are you talking about? I just made this up. It's completely
make believe.
Yeah, and this critical thinking, critical analysis is important. That not only we preach critical thinking and critical analysis, but also that we test it, and that we expect our students to doubt us. I expect my students to doubt me all the time, to challenge me.
Yep.
And say, actually, no, I found this article that says this other thing, Ioannis, or you're wrong here, yeah.
We've covered a whole load of stuff there that's we've been talking for a while, and you've given us some really useful information. And you know what? When I think about kind of the sort of universities and college that people should be looking at, I would be looking as a parent or as a student for the passion that you've just demonstrated in the last 40 minutes for education. That's what I would be aiming for.
Bless you. But let me say one last thing, if I may, because I think students think, we talked about skills, I think, and students might think that skills alone are enough. And there was a research 9 years or so ago from an Australian university that showed that the perception of students, what they think are great skills, and the perception of employers is different. And the employers are looking mostly for attitudinal skills. So make sure you work also on your personality, make sure you work on your attitude of how, don't be a negative person. Nobody likes a moaner. Just be positive, learn from everything. If one message people take from here, no matter whether you study for a degree or not, work on your attitude like it's a muscle. That's all I'm going to say.
Love it. Absolutely love that. Ioannis, thank you very much. You just blown me away. Absolutely blown me away. Thank you, dude.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you. It's lovely meeting you.
And you too.
Bye.